Live from the Deer and Deer Hunting headquarters here in Iola, Wisconsin. Welcome to another episode of Deer Talk Now. I'm Dan Schmidt along with Brad Rux once again. Brad, we're into March. We can see the light.
I know, absolutely. This winter just does not go away. We got at least 2 feet of snow on in the woods. I mean, the deer are starting to have a hard time. And believe it or not, I actually saw one that's definitely starved to death. It's in the neighbor's lawn underneath a tree dead. There's 5 deer every single day that are staying up there. All are fawns. So, I mean, hopefully we have a warm thaw up and this snow gets out of here. Cause
I hope it happens fast because I hate to say this. I've been chasing deer off of my property for every morning because they've just been pounding the spruce and the pines. And you know when they're eating spruce and they're eating pine, especially red pine, red spruce, it's getting pretty bad. And March is always the telltale month. And like you said, it's always usually the younger deer, the weak deer, the ones that haven't had the body structure built up yet that are going to be affected most.
It seems like the doe fawns, and you know they're stressed because even like yesterday morning I was coming to work and I looked over at a house and one was curled up right next to their foundation. It must have been a little bit warmer there and it was sleeping there. It wasn't there last night because I drove past it again, but you know, it's sad to see this time of year, so I just want it to warm up. I also want to look for shed antlers.
I do too. We have so much snow. It's knee deep. I tried going last weekend. The snow in the woods is knee deep. It's kind of pointless to look right now.
Absolutely.
And plus we're getting more snow. We're not going to quite get hit by what they're experiencing down by Chicago, and it's actually heading over towards the East Coast today and tomorrow. So it's going to be interesting. But the long range forecast calls for 40 degrees. That's going to start helping melt some of us in the snow belt. I know the southern viewers. They've already had sunshine. It's been cooler than normal for a lot of those folks down in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi. But it looks like turkey season's going to come in nice swing for them here pretty soon, and it should be a pretty good spring.
Osceola is what, in March, right? The end of March.
Exactly.
End of this month. I'll be hunting turkeys.
Envious of everybody who's chasing a Osceola turkey because we got to wait a few. Well, we got to wait until April here, so it's going to be a little bit yet. We have another special show in store for you today. Our special guest is going to be longtime deer and deer hunting contributor Steve Bartylla. You know Steve as a diehard bow hunter. He's just an awesome deer hunter. He's going to talk to us today about all sorts of deer hunting tips, spring food plot preparation procedures. We're going to talk about mineral licks. We're going to talk about all sorts of good deer hunting stuff with Steve. A couple things to tell everybody about today. We have 2 specials on shopdeerhunting.com this week. And if you're watching Deer Talk, you're going to get the special. We have them brand new in the store. We don't have them here. We have a mini version of the can cooker, and it's really cool. I mean, a lot of people love the regular size can cooker. We've heard from a lot of people who've tried it. They love it. It's a little bit too big if you only have 1 or 2 people. Yeah. So now we have the mini one. It's about half the size. It's not the one pictured there. It's half the size of that one. It's a little bit wider profile on that one. It's on sale this week for $49. That's more than $10 off the retail price. And you're going to get that extra 10% off there on your screen if you enter Deer Talk when you check out online, or even if you want to call the toll-free number there. You can get that extra 10% off. Brad, I know you like them too. It is a cool product, but that mini one, especially if you only have 1 or 2 people, it's ideal.
Yeah, it'd be perfect if you're going to camp hunting with one other guy, or if it's just you're married and you only have a wife. I mean, that one's perfect for me. I have 5 kids, so I want the larger one.
You fill that thing up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole meal, but with the smaller families, you definitely want that smaller one, and it's a good price point. So. I should probably have both.
Yeah, check it out. The other deal we have going on is called the Whitetail Fanatic Value Pack. This one is just a phenomenal value. You're going to get 2 of our best books that we've ever produced. One is Legendary Whitetails 3, brand new book by Duncan Dovey on some of the biggest bucks ever killed. It's a very cool book, hardcover, full color throughout, beautiful coffee table style book. We have that one there. It's on your screen there. That's the Johnny King buck on the cover. You're going to even read more fascinating insights on that deer and several dozen more just giant whitetails. The other book in this pack, it's the Whitetail Fanatic Value Pack, is Charlie Alsheimer's Whitetails, A Photographic Journey. Charlie's probably his best book. It's got some of his best photos he's ever taken. Really, really cool. This is a book that I love to just sit down and look at now. It's not real heavy on the text, but he talks about deer behavior. You can look at some of the most incredible photos you've ever seen. Very, very cool. And we're throwing in a copy of Season 7 of Deer and Deer Hunting TV with this value pack, $34. I mean, the retail value on the books alone is $30 per book. So you're looking at a retail value of over $75. You're going to get it for $34 today. The end of this week, actually. Check it out at shopdeerhunting.com.
It's a steal.
Get the extra 10% off. You're talking $30. It's a steal. But before we get Steve online, Brad, you know, we had talked about some of the cool stuff that we've seen at the various trade shows this year. I wanted to bring up and discuss a few more that we got the new issue of Deer and Deer Hunting. The June issue includes, we call it America's Top 50. We just put that, sent that to the printer the other day. It's going to be in your mailbox if you're a subscriber here in a couple weeks.
2 weeks.
It's going to be on newsstand shortly. There's the lead to this section. It's very, very cool. We're calling it America's Top 50. We picked out, basically here in the office, the editors, Brad, and the TV crew, we picked out our favorite products that we saw this year that are brand new, and we came up with a top 50 list, and it's going to be in the June issue. A couple of the products in there that I want to talk about. I know we've talked about this before. Wildlife Research Center, they have several new products. One is Scent Killer Gold. You're probably familiar with Scent Killer if you've hunted, bow hunted especially at all, but Scent Killer Gold, I got to use this last fall. I know you did too, Brad. This stuff is really awesome. I mean, they say 99% effective. I mean, I'm almost talking 100% effective. What I like about it is the Hunt Dry technology in this spray, is I can spray that on my boots well before I go hunting, hours before I go hunting. That stuff dries and it's still effective. I mean, it basically makes you scent. It eliminates all the scent on your boots, your clothes, your hard gear, your backpacks, all sorts of stuff. I really like it.
Yeah, what I would do when I come back from every one of my hunts, I spray it down, let it all out to dry, and then I pack it up, and I know it's going to be scent-free when I put it back on. I also spray a little bit down when I'm going out, but at least I know I'm going to be totally scent-free.
You know, we all use Scent Killer and scent-killing sprays on all of our stuff when we're going hunting, especially when we're going hunting. What I really like about this one, what I found especially useful, was on my harness. You know, your harness, you wear it, especially it goes. Sometimes you wear a coat over the top of it. It's almost, you can't wash it. Mm-hmm. So what I'll do is I'll hang that. I hang it on my kid's swing set, and I just spray the heck out of it with Scent Killer Gold, and you passes a sniff test for me. Really, really like that. Also from Wildlife Research Center, this is something new that they came out with last year, but they have a line of these. They're kind of attractant sprays. This one's called Sweet Corn Mash. What I like about this is you know, in areas where you don't want to bait or you can't bait and it's not legal, especially when you're bow hunting, you can spray this in a spot. So if you know the deer are coming through on a certain trail, they're going to stop because they smell that. This is basically, it's like sweet corn. It smells like sweet corn. It's a cool little product that they have. Tuck that in your backpack, and if you have a spot where you know the deer are coming through and you might not be able to stop them when they get to that, you can stop them right in the shooting lane.
Yeah.
Neat product. Speaking of, you know, the whole scent game, one thing that is, well, they have a new unit, but in case you don't know about it, it's the Ozonics unit. We've been using these on the TV shows for over the past year. They are the bomb for, especially for hunting a stand where the wind might not be right. It has a little fan in it. If you're not familiar with what an Ozonics is, it's an ozone generator. And Brad, I know you use these a lot, but basically you turn that mode on, you can click that fan high, medium, or low, and it really helps with scent control.
Yeah, basically you're going to position this unit above your head and angle it down, and what you're trying to do is get this out in front of your wind stream so it actually hits the deer, you know, and then your scent is going to be blown into it. It basically eats your scent, and it isn't effective. I mean, it sounds stupid. I've been trying to use ozone probably for the last 5 years now. And when this came out, I'll be honest with you, I just was like, oh, who's going to take one of those in the tree? It's not, you know, I just didn't believe in it.
It looks cumbersome, but it's not. It actually has a little screw-in, almost a screw-in step kind of thing.
I take two of them now. I mean, we take two of them. I put one over the cameraman. I put one over myself. And we had tons of deer, absolutely downwind. How do I know? I'm one of those guys, you know, fanatic. I pull out one of those little puffs or your wind puffer, or a little piece of cotton, and it floats down right to the deer. And I'm talking big, mature does, and they wouldn't even lift up their
right
head.
there. I hunted with the Ozonics probably a dozen times last fall. I got it later, no, I shouldn't say later, probably midway through the season. And every single time I hunted with it, I had deer downwind of me. And not one of those deer blew at me. Now, granted, one thing, and John Ozoga's always told me, he said, well, Dan, you're doing everything. I am. I wash my clothes, I take a shower using the shampoo and the soap. I use Scent Killer Gold when I'm spraying on my boots. I'm doing all that stuff as you are. But even when you do that, even wearing Scent Lock, even wearing a activated carbon suit underneath, sometimes you get winded.
Absolutely.
And especially when you're in that stand, it's like, man, I probably shouldn't be hunting this stand because the wind's not perfect. I use these purposefully in some of these spots, and I had deer stand it. Literally, my wind is blowing right to them, and they did not bust me.
There's kind of like three typical reactions. One is the deer does nothing. I mean, acts like it does not smell a thing, keeps his head down, continues feed. Once in a while, you'll hit a doe that smells. I think they can smell the ozone because you and I can smell it. And they'll lift up their nose, and they just, pretty soon they'll just lose interest in it because they can't smell anything. And the third reaction, and it's not really a bad reaction, a deer comes into it, again, it smells it, and it lifts up its head. Now, it doesn't smell us, and it doesn't freak out and, bolt out of there, but it slowly leaves the food plot. So I've seen all three reactions. The beauty of it is, even if it leaves the food plot, it didn't smell human scent.
It didn't bust me.
And it doesn't realize, this is a scent associated with it.
The best way I can describe it is it smells kind of like chlorine from a pool or something. That's basically, and there is a little hum to that fan. Some people were concerned about that. We had TV footage of in Illinois and Iowa. All the deer I shot, we had that thing on, and not one of them busted. And that fan's humming. We had it on high. It's not real loud. It's just kind of an ambient sound that you hear in the background. But you really want to check out the new Ozonics unit. We have it in the brand new model is in the June issue that we just showed you. So check it out. It's a very cool product. For if you're really serious about scent control, you're going to want to add that to your plan of attack for scent control. A couple other things that we have. We only have a photo of. We'll get to the bow here in a second. We only have a photo of this one. It's the Hurricane Power Lock. We both saw that at ETA.
Oh, that's cool.
This is pretty cool, and I think this is one of the products that I have not actually got to try yet that I really want to try. This is essentially will replace the chain or the strap on your tree stand. And how this thing works is it attaches to your stand, and you basically use a power drill. And it attaches to that, and there's hydraulics in there. You're going to get that stand on the tree tight, and it's never coming off.
Well, they've tested it, too, to know the exact kind of tension that they want for best performance without bending anything. It's going to be most solid, and it's already preset. So literally, even if you're using your ratchet or your drill or whatever you're using to tighten it down, you can't over-tighten it, because once it hits that point, it's going to stop. It's going to just... it makes a noise, and it's just not tightening it any further. So literally, it gives you the perfect tension of that tree stand or camera or whatever it is every single time. It is cool. It is definitely
it's
one
a
of
very
the
cool
coolest
product that I'm definitely.
You're going to see those in all different applications.
I think that's exactly true. That once people get their hands on these things and try them, I think it's going to take off. Let's talk about the new Matthews Creed. It's a very cool bow. You already have yours halfway set up. Mine is about in the same stage.
I'm waiting for the arrow rest. I mean, it just came in. I had the pleasure of going to the Matthews show early December, and we actually got to shoot the bows. It's smooth. It's really nice. I'm excited to get it all set up, but I'm waiting for my arrow rest. And once that comes in, I'll be good to go. So my press is in my office. What's really cool about it is, if you look at it, I mean, first off, split limbs. You haven't seen Matt McPherson ever do. They had a little bit with the Monster in the past, and now they've brought that over to the Matthews line, which is pretty cool. So it's extremely lightweight. It's got the grid lock, but what's cool about it is the cam. And I'm not going to get technicalities of this thing, but Matt McPherson, if you've been to his plant like we have, the one thing I can promise you is he didn't just build this cam and try it one time and say, oh, it's good to go. He probably has, you know, a couple hundred of these that they've tested and tested.
After prototype.
Yeah, until he tweaks it to the highest performance possible. And if you look at it, it's definitely different than their other ones. It's not, they went away with a premier weight, but it's kind of, I would guess, you know, the way it's shaped.
I think the beauty of this bow, and I've only actually been able to draw it and release it a couple times, but for me, my shoulder is about gone, and I probably should get surgery on it, but I haven't. I have mine, I got the 60-pound module, so I'm going to have that tuned down to 55, which for me is really beneficial. As you saw last year, my shooting accuracy went through the roof when I tuned my bow down. But this one is much softer, I should say, on my shoulder. It's more forgiving when I get it back there. Oh, and when you release, it's I can't believe I hate it's almost a broken record to say this about a Matthews bow, but it is quiet and forgiving as any bow they've ever built.
You don't hear or feel any kind of vibration in the handle. It's got a positive, you know, draw stop on it, so it's going to be a solid wall in the back. It's not going to have that little bit of softness in the back wall. I mean, it is a great bow. I cannot wait to get it set up.
If you're looking to upgrade to a new bow, you have to check out the Matthews Creed. We have more on it in that June issue, and we are also going to have reviews online after that issue hits. One more product, and we talked about this a little bit last week, is the new Maxima Red arrow from Carbon Express.
What's cool about this is if you really get into arrows, it's the technology. You know, the arrow, when it comes out, it's going to vibrate. And this is built so that the middle is actually stiffer, and it's going to recover quicker out of the bow. So when you shoot it, it's going to recover quicker. What does that mean to the hunter? It means it's going to be more accurate downrange.
It's going to be more accurate.
So you're going to be able to shoot it better. We've got these in the office, but I didn't have my bow set up, so I've not cut them down. But I will have these. Yeah. We'll be shooting these by the end of March.
And if you've shot any of the Maxima Hunters from Carbon Express, and another broken record here, but I used to shoot the bargain basement cheapo arrows that I'd get for 39 bucks a dozen, and I'd say, good enough, I'm only hunting with them. And I always thought it was good enough, but I was always, when I got out to 35, 40 yards, I was starting to get apprehensive. The second I switched over to a premium shaft, like these Carbon Express arrows, my confidence level went up. I shot more accurately, and more importantly for me, I extended my range, so now I can practice at longer distances. And now 40 yards to me, I don't want to say it's a cupcake shot, but my goodness,
it is.
I'm very confident out to 40 yards with broadheads.
Yeah, and you know, if you're worried about spending $100 or $130, $150 with arrows, think about how long they last. It used to be you'd shoot a deer, if the arrow stuck in it, it's going to run away, it's going to break. These things last. I mean, they last. I had one particular, and it was just a Maxima Hunter, and I don't mean just, but it was a Maxima Hunter, and I shot 13 bucks with it before it broke.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you can reuse arrows, but the other thing too is, yeah, 150 bucks is a lot of money. I mean, especially for some arrows. But when you think about it, all the money that you're investing into clothes and boots and tree stands and a hunting lease and all that stuff, it's like that's the thing that's going to ultimately decide whether I get that deer or not. Yeah. And I need to have that confidence. And so basically, it's basically their premium shaft that they just came out with this year.
Yeah.
And just like you, I have not cut mine yet. I gotta get those cut and shoot them. But I've been shooting the KVs, which are basically, I mean, it's another premium shaft that they have. Very good hunting arrow. So check those out. Okay, that's what we have for today for the top products. We're gonna get on the line now with Steve Bartylla, and we're gonna talk about scouting, what we're doing in spring. All sorts of stuff with food plots. So let's get Steve on the horn here and see what's he up to today.
Hello?
Steve.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you doing today? We said 10 minutes. When I say 10 minutes, it actually means a half an hour.
Okay.
Welcome to Deer Talk. Now, thanks for taking some time out of your day to join Brad and I again and talk deer hunting with us.
It's my pleasure, guys.
You know, Steve, Brad and I were talking, you know, where we are, and I'm sure it's the same by you. You're in central Wisconsin. You know, the snow depth here is knee deep. What does a guy do this time of year when he's only got whitetails on his mind?
Well, one of the biggest things I've been doing lately is actually, of all things, loosening tree stands and getting my safety system straps out of the trees. I'm not advising listeners to do this. Okay, by far the best thing to do is actually yank their stands and get them out of the woods. Okay, but at the very least, I think one of the biggest dangers out there is people leave their tree stands up the entire year, after year after year, and that tree grows. And as it's growing, it's putting all this pressure on the straps or chain or whatever fastening device their stand is using. And I'll tell you what, that gets dangerous.
Absolutely. You know, we were just talking about that before with, you know, not only manufactured stands, you know, you put up a lock-on type, we always call them a lock-on type stand, but
sure.
A stand with a chain on it or a strap. But what I always tell people, my goodness, if you have a permanent stand, please don't hunt on that thing if it's been up there for quite a while, because you never know. Nails pull out of trees. Last thing you want to be doing is being taken to the hospital in a helicopter.
Oh, exactly. So, I mean, as I said, I advise get the stands out of there. But it's it's a case where I don't quite practice what I preach. What I do is I go out there and I loosen all the tree stands. I remove starting a couple years ago, I stumbled across a really nice trick of picking up a bunch of extra hunter safety tree straps. And I just put them up in the tree when I hang the stand itself, so now I don't have to waste the time of putting the strap up there and making the extra noise of tightening it and all that stuff. Boom, I just clip in. And then I'm also in recent years started using the hunter safety's lifeline.
Right.
Those two things, and that way what it does is I often believe that, you know, climbing trees are a heck of a lot more dangerous than actually sitting up in a tree stand, and that makes it so that, you know what, if you slip on a icy step or wet step or what have you, you know, you're not plummeting 18, 20 feet. But those two items I get out of the woods each and every year, and that's along with loosening tree stands right now. The big thing I'm doing is, and taking the seats so the squirrels don't eat them. And back up just for 1 second. When I'm loosening these stands, all I'm doing is I use strap style stands and climbing sticks. All I'm doing is loosening the straps on both, so there's a little slop in there, so that, you know, when the tree grows, big deal. It's not putting any pressure on the stand itself. And then, as I said, I'm actually getting the 2 Hunter Safety Systems products out of the woods with me.
I really love those lifelines. I've been using for a long time now. And if you don't know what we're talking about, essentially it's a big rope with a prusik knot on it, and you attach that thing to the tree. I agree with Steve. I do not leave those up over winter. I take those down. Those can get frayed, or squirrels can chew on them or whatnot. But if you have several stands at your spots that you're going to hunt, I recommend having one of those in every one of your sets.
Oh, they are nice. And it used to be that I was too comfortable up in tree stands, and thank God I have no idea how. I've never fallen. But with a little bit more age comes hopefully a little more wisdom, and you realize it's not worth it.
Exactly. Well, another thing that I know that you've been doing a lot lately, and Brad has too, is you've been taking a ground approach and in hunting out of ground blinds. Is now a good time of year to be scouting out some of those spots and maybe prepping those areas for ground blinds for this coming fall?
Probably a little bit early yet for the prep work itself, but yeah, there's really 3 main things that I'm doing this type of year, and you just hit on the second, and that's scouting. Now is a great time to get out there and go ahead and formulate a plan for, I mean, I know this sounds ridiculous because it's so early, but start formulating a plan for how you're going to hunt this coming season. Now, not to get off on too much of a tangent here, but one of the bigger mistakes I see people make is they just go into season and they make it up as they go along. Now, I try as much as possible to actually, well before season starts, okay, on this piece of ground, this is how I'm going to hunt it. These are the areas I'm going to try to hunt early. This is what I'll start moving into here. come mid-October, late October, November, back in here, all the way through the end of the season. Now, obviously, things change and you have to be flexible about it and adjust on the fly, but by having that approach, you can make it so that, hey, here it is December 3rd, and you got a spot to go to that's still fresh and still productive because you believed that area wouldn't be heating up until you get into late season, so you left that area alone. Instead, you were hunting the areas that you believed would be really hot early in season, and then through the scraping and rut phases. But anyway, taking a wide circle back to what you were saying, yeah, now is a great time to figure out where you're going to put those stands and ground blinds, and this is the time to start doing it. The other thing that I use a lot during this, I'm not a big shed hunter. No, I rely on, I'm very lucky to have a whole bunch of Reconyx cameras that I've built up. They're my scouting tools when it comes to figuring out what I have for quality of bucks out there. Now, those scouting cameras are going to tell me what bucks lived, what bucks are in trouble, what bucks disappeared. But now is a time where I do a lot of scouting, I rip apart those sanctuaries, and when I'm doing this type of stuff, I'm looking for sheds. Now, the sanctuaries, that's one of the more important things I'm doing this time of year, is getting in there, figuring out, okay, how well is this sanctuary being used? If I don't have a bunch of deer beds in there, you know what? My sanctuary needs some work. Maybe I have to get in there and do some hinge cutting or possibly plant some native grasses, do something to, depending on the setting, do something to thicken it up. And at the same time, while looking for improvements, I'm also trying to figure out, okay, how are the deer accessing and departing these sanctuaries? Now, I'm not going to hunt inside that sanctuary, but I sure have no problem hunting right on the doorstep. And the more I can learn about how the deer are actually utilizing that sanctuary itself, how they're traveling through it, the better I can capitalize on them getting to and from it. And the last thing I'm doing in there is, frankly, I'm looking for dead deer. If your sanctuary is actually working well, unfortunately, I find a surprisingly high percent of the dead deer I find within sanctuaries. And this is really important on the smaller properties. When that buck disappears, you don't know if he's relocated over to the neighbors, or so geez, if he's went over to the neighbors, man, I'm going to keep hunting him because he's probably going to come back. And next year, now that season's over, next year, geez, how big is he going to be this coming year? And you got something to be really excited about, but if he's laying there dead in your sanctuary, it's time to come up with a new buck to go after.
Yeah, that's some really good advice there. Brad, you just touched on that before. You have some good cover, and that's where you actually find, you are going to find some dead deer in winter. Regardless of how bad the winter is, some aren't going to make it.
Absolutely. You're going to find them no matter what. There's always those late-born fawns that really seem to struggle no matter how bad the winter is. And Steve, I'd mentioned earlier, this winter up here in Wisconsin is getting pretty intense here with all the snow we have on the ground. And there was 5 fawns that are laying in actually the neighbor's yard, and one of those just passed away the last couple of days. I saw it laying there flat, and actually there could have been another one this morning that could have perished. So unfortunately for me, in my county, I cannot feed or bait or do any of that stuff. So literally they're on their own. Once the food plots are gone and done, it's over. One of the other things that I look for, Steve, in my sanctuaries is where those bucks are staging, because normally if they're staging in that same area, they like to stage in there. They're probably going to stage in there the following year too, so it gives you some indication where the buck movement is.
Oh, exactly. And at the same, then moving outside the sanctuaries, what I'm really trying to find is bedding areas. And when you're talking north, since we're all from Wisconsin here, use that as an example. If you're talking northern Wisconsin or the UP of Michigan or northern Minnesota, you know what, finding bedding areas this time of year probably isn't that, especially when we actually had a real winter for at least the last couple of months. Finding bedding areas this time of year isn't overly productive because the deer are in winter yarding areas.
Yeah.
You know, that they may have, heck, I remember reading some research by John Ozaga talking about how, you know, he was tracking deer that were moving over 20 miles to established deer yards over winter. Up there it doesn't do much good. But I'm sure you'll back me up on this, Brad, and you as well, Dan. In areas like this, where we're at, where it's more a mix of farmland and woods, you know what, deer, I mean, do they do any shifting of their bedding areas? Of course they do. But if they're bedding in this spot right now, there's a pretty good chance there's going to be some bedding there this fall as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's some really good points, you know, and we talk a lot about just where we're located in the snow belt. But Steve, I know you do some work down in southern Illinois. Some of these areas that don't get, you know, when you get to the south, they don't have these same situations. So what would you suggest for a guy who's living in an area that doesn't have either snow at all or very little that he doesn't have to worry about? What are some of the things that he should be looking for right about now, and some of the things that can help him going into this hunting season?
Well, one suggestion, well, frankly, I've just covered a bunch of it, but I actually got thwarted last weekend. I was headed down to west central Illinois to get some frost seeding done. And actually, unfortunately, they have so much wet, sloppy snow that it would have been ridiculous. I couldn't even get to a spot where I could unload my ATV off the road. But frost seeding your clover plots, now's the time to do it. In fact, in that area, you better do it. I've been checking the 10-day forecast every day, praying that I can get down there again before have the right conditions to do it. You best be doing it now because that 10-day claims it's going to warm up big time. Now, so all you do in that case is go ahead and in your bare spots and your clover plots, just broadcast about 3/4 the amount of seed that the manufacturer recommends per acre in those areas, and that is a great way to give that clover plot a nice boost going into spring. And then what I've already covered are the things that I was also going to try to figure out down there, along with this is a great time to really tear apart that area that you struggled with last year. You know the bucks are using this area. You know it's good. But man, my stand site, it just wasn't working there. You know? So as soon as that snow is gone, tear that area apart. Really try to figure out, okay, where are they coming from? Where are they going? Where's that one pinch where everything concentrates the most that I can actually take advantage of this, where I can literally get in and out without disturbing every deer in the woods. Tearing apart those are really big. And then also down there, as well as virtually everywhere else in the Midwest, this is the time of year where if you're going to do some hinge cutting, go ahead and get it done now before the sugars start going up from the root systems into the leaves. Hinge cutting right now is one of my primary activities.
What about, Steve, when do you start looking at, how much work do you do with mineral sites, and when would you start looking at working on those?
You want to get your mineral sites out now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a matter of fact, February 1st is about when I shoot to start getting them out. Unfortunately, it's getting to the point where there's fewer and fewer and fewer states you can actually put them in anymore, which, not trying to get off on too much of a tangent here, I think is very, very short-sighted. And your mineral sites are essentially really not much different than giving a kid a vitamin. But anyway, I'll stop. I could get off on a big rant on that one.
And, you know, that's one thing. We do actually have, for anybody who's looking at it, we do actually have another sale going on that I forgot about on Antler King Mineral at shopdeerhunting.com. you know, those types of things. A lot of people think, oh, I want to grow bigger bucks. Well, as Steve says, a lot of people say, well, February and March, yeah, you want to have that in, you want to have that mineral out there. Like he said, it's no different, really. I've been to Saskatchewan and Ontario to see where deer actually come to natural seepages. It's the same thing. They're actually getting the natural minerals out of the ground, and a lot of places there are no natural seepages like that or that are readily available to deer. You put one out and they can consume it now, like he said, where legal. That will actually give them the boost going into the growing season, especially the antler growing season for bucks.
And for does, it's going to help them lactate. They're going to be healthier. That's going to be healthier milk, which translates that milk going into the fawns in the spring. So more than likely, those fawns are going to get more nutrients. They're going to grow bigger. You know, it's a win-win all the way around. And I agree with you, Steve. A lot of states just don't let you do it. I'm going to touch on one thing that you mentioned, frost seeding. The big thing on frost seeding that you got to remember, you know, across the country, no matter where you live, it can be effective as long as you have nighttime temperatures that are below 32 degrees. Because what happens is you put that seed on top and the ground's going to freeze, and in the morning when it warms back up, it cracks. Some of that seed goes down into the ground, and that's what it is. It's every morning, every night that seed's getting worked into the ground without you doing it, so it's really effective. Up here in Wisconsin, it can be any time in March. You know, down in Illinois, it could be a heck of a lot earlier, and further south you go, it's going to be earlier yet. So,
well, and if you don't mind me interrupting, that's why I was saying that, you know, I imagine it's the same, approximately the same, virtually all along that latitude belt of west central Illinois, and that according to the 10-day forecast, you got this week where it's freezing yet, and then it's getting to highs up in the lower and mid 50s, lows in the lower 40s, upper 30s. At that point, you're frost seeding. It's done.
Yeah.
No, you might. I mean, if you really want to throw money away, you can just give it to me, because that's what
especially with the price of clover seed.
Oh, exactly. And the one other thing I wanted to mention, when you guys were talking minerals, Antler King actually does make a really, really good mineral. A nutritionalist from Purina made a point to me, I think it must be 15 years ago. I was giving seminars, and I think it was Kansas City, and I was talking to him, and he points to his shoe and says, let's just pretend my shoe is 80% protein. That doesn't do a deer any good if it eats my shoe, because it can't digest it. Now, Antler King actually adds a bacteria to their mineral. Minerals are very difficult to digest. They actually add it was either a yeast or a bacteria to help them break down the minerals and vitamins during digestion. And the other point I'd make about minerals is really look at that salt content. A lot of these companies selling minerals out there, they're doing it to attract deer. They're not doing it to try to improve the health. And the great oxymoron of that is, by the time you get to this fall, by the time you get to hunting season, man, there are a lot better attractants to put out than minerals. Deer are done using them at that point. For the most part, their usage level in August starts dropping off real hard. So if you are going to put out a mineral, make sure it's a high quality. Make sure it actually does the deer some good, because it's not going to do you hardly any good come hunting season anyway, except for how it benefited the deer. If that salt content is much up over 30%, chances are that mineral isn't doing the deer much good. It's just attracting them to eat the salt.
That's some great information. Steve, we've got to let you run. I know you have a couple appearances coming up here you want to share with the viewers, because I know some of the guys are going to be living in the areas where you're going to be doing some seminars here shortly.
Well, actually, my seminars are mostly done for the year. The one I've got coming up yet is at the Madison Deer and Turkey Expo. I think it's the early April.
Yeah, it's normally the first weekend in April.
First week in April, Madison Deer and Turkey Expo. I know you'll be there all 3 days, won't you?
Yeah, actually it's the 5th, 6th, and 7th of April. Yes, I'll be there all 3 days. I'm actually giving seminars on how to improve your hunting how to improve your habitat to help the deer, but also every bit as much to help your own hunting. How to lay it out so if you're going to make a hinge cut and you're going to go ahead and put in a food plot, you might as well make it so that the deer have to go through the funnel that you can get too easy.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who lives near Madison or within driving distance, I recommend seeing Steve. Steve's always very informative, and he's always willing to go out of his way to actually sit down and take questions with people afterwards. Steve, thanks a lot for joining us today. We really appreciate taking the time out to join us on Deer Talk Now.
Oh, my pleasure. And if I can put in one more plug for your viewers, Brooks Johnson and I, former owner of Double Bull Archery, just are starting a habitat improvement site. Long run, it's actually going to be a pay site, but since it's just getting up off the ground for, if I were to guess, probably a half a year or so, the viewers can go there and get the information for free. And in there, we are getting into very, the goal long term will be very detail oriented. How do you conduct a hinge cut? Where do you want to place that hinge cut? Different habitat improvements like that. And that's foodplotsfordeer.com, hyphens between each word.
Foodplotsfordeer.com. Cool. We'll put a link for that on deeranddeerhunting.com as well, so people can find that. All right, Steve, thanks a lot, and I hope you have a great spring.
Hey, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it, and same to you.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
You know, Steve's always a wealth of knowledge, Brad. I know everybody we have on here, they're deer geeks like us, but like I said, unless you've seen Steve speak or got to meet him or talk to him, there's not a nicer guy out there and a not more knowledgeable guy out there about deer.
Yeah, and you know, if you got an opinion, he's always willing to listen to it, and you know, vice versa. Him and I have a lot of similar traits on what we believe, so I mean, we always get along well.
Yeah, you know, and the other thing about Steve is he's very unassuming. He doesn't pretend like he knows it all. I think he knows more than I'll ever. He's forgotten more than I'll know about deer. But the nice thing about Steve is he's willing, especially if you get a chance to see him in person and do a seminar. He's willing to sit down and people can actually, you know, he really understands topography and how deer use it. Well, we really appreciate Steve being on today. Want to remind everybody about the 2 big sales going on at Deer and Deer. It's actually 3. We have the one on the Antler King mineral packets. Check it out. It's a starter pack of minerals for to start your own mineral site. A very reasonable deal. I don't have it here, but it's at shopdeerhunting.com. Just Google minerals or mineral pack and you'll find it. The other thing that you can find at Shop Deer are the mini can cookers. Brand new in the store. We just got them in this week. We have a sale on today and the rest of this week, $10 off. And also that Whitetail Fanatic pack that we talked about. I recommend checking that out. Checking out the new gear that we have. Be sure to check out the June issue of Deer and Deer Hunting. Be here in about 2 weeks. And that's about it for today. So for Brad Rux, I'm Dan Schmidt. Thanks again for joining us for Deer Talk Now. We'll see you again next week, Wednesday.